Hey, this is Josh with pmstudent.com and also blogging for ganted.com today. I wanted to point out a trend that I've been seeing lately. It's pretty interesting, actually. There's been a couple times in the last week, actually, that I have noticed government agencies around the world basically taking a look at their project management and realizing that they need to do a better job. So, um, the story that I'm looking at right here in The Guardian is basically a planned shakeup of the way that they do IT projects in the UK. And there's actually the Major Projects Authority, and they're talking about this Major Projects Leadership Academy. Um, where that's basically for training senior project managers who are going to be in charge of these mega projects to make sure that we have good, competent people that are well trained that are in these roles, um, which I really think is a good step in the right direction. So it's essentially kind of a certification program, but it's actually like a year long intensive training and mentorship program, which I think is an awesome idea. So that's going on in the UK, among quite a few other things. And then today I came across this report from the Cayman Islands, of all places. And this is a report from the General Auditor about the management of major capital projects that have been taking place. So, and this report was really interesting. The capital major capital projects, so building schools and other government buildings, is about 25% of the government's total expenditure. And so that's one of the reasons why this is getting quite a bit of focus there in the Caymans. So take a look at some of the major findings here. So major finding one, government does not have sound governance framework for the development of major capital projects. So, and some of the things that they talk about are that they're lacking in developing comprehensive business cases. They're lacking there. The roles and responsibilities of procurement and project management are not clearly defined, and you've got politicians and officials kind of getting into the process and mucking things up, which is another problem. They talk about that they need to establish some sound financial management practices kind of across the board, and also quality standards. They're missing out on basic quality standards for these major projects, major buildings and things like that. Major finding two, project management practices for some of the new high schools that have been built recently or attempted to be built were deficient. So, and one of the examples here that he goes into later in the report is an example of a high school where, because they didn't do their due diligence up front, they spent $5.9 million on the project before they decided that they weren't going to be able to complete it. So now they have a $5.9 million parking lot, and they're still paying interest on the loans to get that money. So as a pretty clear example, and there's quite a few other examples of high schools that have been built where there's issues with the bidding. So the contractors that are coming in and bidding on these government projects are, the lowest bids are coming in at over market prices for the same type of work in commercial projects. So definitely some issues there. They did have finding three here, though, some good news. They did have a government administration building that was performed by a competent project manager who did a good job. There were some issues with it, but this is kind of like one good example there. So in general, the recommendation is to establish, I saw this language in the UK report as well, is like a center of excellence. So some type of, how do we consistently do well on projects, especially these large dollar projects. They're talking about the capital infrastructure projects here in the Caymans. In the UK, they were focusing on IT projects. So maybe their construction and major capital projects for buildings and things, maybe that's better established. Maybe not. Maybe this was just the flavor of the moment, and they're focusing on IT at this point. But I just wanted to share that with you. I thought it was interesting to see that. I'm starting to see some of those in other places too, but this week in particular, I saw this one from the UK and the one from the Cayman Islands, and it makes me wonder too about the United States and exactly what we've got in place to make sure that our government officials are and agencies are doing the right thing, spending the government, the taxpayer money wisely, and that these projects are being done in a consistent and competent manner. So, if you have any comments about that, leave a comment for me, and let's have a discussion around this topic. Should the U.S. do something very similar to this, or do we already have something that maybe I'm not aware of? I know with the DoD, there's a program there that's kind of more of a general program that encompasses more things than just project management. But in the U.S., do we need to have something like this, like a Center for Excellence, some type of an internship and training program for people who are going to be working with taxpayer money on these government projects to make sure that they get done right? Leave me a comment. Thanks, everybody.